Hey guys, this is Alden Chodash. Welcome back to the show. From about a week back, we discussed the two biggest events in boxing: Chavez versus Martinez, and the doubleheader with Alvarez versus Jose Cito Lopez. In this show, not too many current events to cover because this past weekend didn't really have much televised action that everyone had access to. So instead, we're going to discuss more of the upcoming events and even hypothetical situations and who's going to carry the throne of King of Boxing after Pacquiao and Mayweather depart, etc. All right, so there are a few current events not involved with actual competition, but the announcement of Marquez Pacquiao 4, a big fight, pay per view. Obviously, the first three fights could have went either way. Pacquiao got the nod at two of the three. First was a draw, and Pacquiao. Many people thought Marquez won the second and third fights. Some people thought Marquez won all three fights, and you can't really argue with them because every fight was within a round or two margin of error. So logically, the fourth fight makes sense. Some people might think they've had enough of the two fighting. I mean, both of them are significantly older. The fight won't produce nearly as many fireworks, or so we think, than the fight did in 2005 when they fought to an action-packed draw, almost the fight of the year. But it's still significant because these are still, as of right now, some of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the sport of boxing. And I mean, for a lot of people, it's unsettled business. And for Pacquiao, if he wants to fight with Mayweather, it's a fight where he has to look impressive. Some said that he has to win by knockout against Marquez to settle all that controversy. And even some of the doubters that say maybe he's a little washed up. He didn't look nearly as good as against Tim Bradley as he should have, and lost. Most people don't accept that as a loss. But I mean, it's hard to see how that was an impressive performance, win or lose, against Tim Bradley. I really don't think he looked very good against Tim Bradley. I thought he was missing a lot of his punches. I thought he was plotting, and he didn't use his right hand as much as he did in previous years. He kind of reverted back to the one-handed left hand Pacquiao, and one that isn't nearly as dynamic as he was against his fights against Barrera, Morales, Marquez in 03, 04, and 05. But anyways, him against Marquez should be a good fight. It's definitely going to be very competitive. Probably won't be as exciting, but if you want a prediction, I think Pacquiao is going to win another close decision. I just think their styles are meant for Marquez to counterpunch, not take the initiative needed to edge Pacquiao in a decision. Because judges do score on aggressiveness to some extent, effective aggressiveness, and Pacquiao is inevitably the aggressor against Marquez, just the way their styles pair. And Marquez is going to land a lot of good punches. He is going to win plenty of rounds, but I think Pacquiao is going to edge him again. But I expect a little less fireworks than the third fight, which produced less fireworks than the second and the first fight. So, it might not be the best thing for Pacquiao because it's not a guy that he can easily look impressive against. Even though some might debate that a rematch with Tim Bradley might be even more of a risk if he wants to propel himself into a Mayweather fight. I think Marquez is a little more dangerous than a Bradley fight because if Pacquiao beat Bradley in the rematch, he would have settled that debate of whether he'd have problems with Tim Bradley with 2 feet. I mean, Tim Bradley's able to say, "Hey, I injured my foot in the second round. Let me fight Pacquiao at 2 feet. Maybe I can beat him decisively this time." That rematch isn't happening. I don't know why, but instead they're going on to face Marquez in a fourth fight, which is more dangerous, in my opinion. Another piece of news I won't spend as much time on. Chavez Jr. tested positive for marijuana in, these are just my notes, in the post-fight drug test after he lost to Sergio Martinez. Obviously, marijuana is not a performance-enhancing drug, so I really don't think that it's the worst thing in the world in terms of something that would give him an unfair advantage. I think it's something that just emphasizes the fact that he wasn't prepared properly for this fight. Maybe he isn't mature enough to go into a fight of this magnitude. But it is somewhat disappointing that a professional athlete at this stage is preparing or not preparing the way he should be. And he had a DUI in the past, marijuana on top of that. He seems like a college kid that likes to party instead of a professional athlete that makes millions of dollars for something that he loves to do. But we're going to talk about the guys after Mayweather and Pacquiao leave the sport. Who's going to take the throne? Who's going to be the cash cow of boxing? Who's going to generate the most stardom? And unfortunately, one of them might be Chavez Jr. Despite of everything I said, he still is one of the most marketable fighters out there because he's the most popular fighter in Mexico right now. He carries the legacy of his father, who is the most popular fighter ever to fight out of Mexico, a legend in Mexico. Chavez Jr. or Chavez Sr. is. So Chavez Jr. has a lot of momentum he's carrying on his shoulder, and every time he fights, it's a big event because of the crowd, because of the fact that he is a puncher. I mean, despite what I said last week about saying that he's not really a true middleweight. Why is he beating up on middleweights? I don't know. Still makes him a puncher at that weight. Still makes him exciting to watch for many people that like to see a light heavyweight beat up on middleweights, and because of his limited boxing ability to some extent that was exposed and exploited against Sergio Martinez, it kind of evens it out so that you can create some drama. You can come from behind and maybe rely on his cruiserweight / light heavyweight power to pull himself back into the fight. A couple other guys, obviously Andre Ward and Sergio Martinez, really we're just going down the pound-for-pound list, with the exception of Chavez Jr. Sergio Martinez and Andre Ward are besides Pacquiao and Mayweather, the two best fighters in the sport, probably 3 and 4 respectively, maybe 2 and 3 on the pound-for-pound list. Andre Ward coming off Chad Dawson, amazing victory. Sergio Martinez still coming off a great victory over Chavez, who's, as I said, not his size. Both of these guys have the most talent, most developed talent, most mature out of any fighter in the world today, behind Pacquiao and Mayweather, maybe even above Pacquiao at this stage. But it's, Andre Ward, he's getting there. He's generated a knockout against Chad Dawson, which shocked me. I had no idea that was happening. Maybe if he gets to the point where he puts more on his punches and scores more knockouts against the opposition like he did in his last fight, he will become one of the most popular, if not the most popular fighter in boxing after Mayweather and Pacquiao depart. The only thing missing from him is punching power, or so we thought before he knocked out Chad Dawson. He has a tendency, he has somewhat of a tendency to hold and be in less exciting fights than people want to see. But people know talent. When people saw Floyd Mayweather beat Arturo Gatti, it was entertaining. It was a mismatch, but it was entertaining because Floyd Mayweather was amazing to watch. To some extent, Andre Ward follows in those footsteps. The guy hasn't lost since he was 13. He's an Olympic gold medalist, already over Mayweather on paper. And he's the most talented fighter, naturally talented fighter in the world, I think. I think the only thing left for him to do to make himself a unified superstar, glorified superstar in the sport, is to put more on his punches and take guys out of there, because he's definitely the better fighter in 99% of the fights that he fights. I wouldn't be surprised if he never loses a fight. Floyd Mayweather never lost a fight. Andre Ward is the most talented fighter of this generation. Why not? Why can't the torch be passed over in that manner? Sergio Martinez is probably reaching the apex of his career. He's an older guy, he's 37, but then again, he got a late start. But also, he's still been fighting for a while, and it took him a little while for his career to get to the level in which it is right now. But he's really doing a great job. I think if he fights Chavez again, he needs to win that fight decisively to get rid of the doubters that said, oh, one or two 15-round fight, you would have been knocked out. Maybe that's true. He did suffer a torn knee, or torn ligaments in his knee, but he's also a warrior. At this stage of his career, he really buckled down and fought someone so much younger than him, really not even a fair fight on paper in terms of weight, and survived the best that Chavez had and utterly dominated him for about 98% of the fight. So, a great victory. I think he's on to better things. I think inevitably, when they fight at the right weight, him and Andre Ward are going to produce maybe the Mayweather-Pacquiao of this generation, which hopefully happens, because the Mayweather-Pacquiao of the last generation, I mean, yeah, I consider it in the past because I don't think it's going to happen. And even if it does happen, I don't think it's going to be the same that it was in the past because they waited so long. Things have happened. Mayweather's been in jail. Pacquiao's lost a fight. Pacquiao, I think, is not looking as exciting and as good as he did in the past. He hasn't scored a knockout since Miguel Cotto, if I'm not mistaken. He hasn't really looked great since Miguel Cotto. Maybe Antonio Margarito, but that only goes so far. Margarito possibly isn't who he was when he had loaded hand wraps. But then you have the question: if they fought at their best when Pacquiao was in the form as he was against Miguel Cotto, and Mayweather, as he is right now, Mayweather is still at his best in my opinion. If they fought, who would win? Very polarized answers. Supporters of both fighters say their fighter would win dominantly. I mean, you hear Skip Bayless on ESPN saying Pacquiao would win a couple rounds. Obviously, that wouldn't happen. Some people think Mayweather would win every round. I think that could happen. To be honest, I think I think Mayweather is the best fighter of this era. I don't think he would win every round, but I think he would definitely have an upper hand against Manny Pacquiao because he would just be able to catch Pacquiao coming in. Mayweather has shown a pretty good chin, and it's up for debate, but I think Mayweather would end up winning the fight. Well, time is up, so I will see you guys next week.